I love the sort of historical journey that we've sort of gone on there, talking about the tape and Into the Door. What do you think is next? What do you think is the future holds?
Well, as the first sitting in the first private install of Dolby Atmos music studio in the UK, we've got a PMC 914 set up here. We've been on the Atmos music journey for a year now, and it's definitely gaining more traction this year. This last period of this, since February really, it's really gaining, something's happened, and there's more awareness, and or maybe it's people coming back into the office after the pandemic, or what, whatever it is, it's gaining traction. There are Amazon are supporting Atmos music, and Tidal currently deliver it. There's a lot more support from Amazon on that front as well. We're doing work for those guys now.
Do you think people are getting bored of stereo? Are they just looking for a new way of hearing things?
Funny one with that. I think people are getting bored by the quality of streaming. If you look at the uptake in the higher tier subscriptions of HDs, I was talking to somebody from Amazon about it last week, and there's the subscription numbers are high. Like it's hard to define what it is. I always talk about it as my ears get tired. So if I listen to lower quality at the time I'm on the tube, it doesn't matter. But I'm tired when I get off the tube. If I listen to Tidal and Amazon HD especially, I can listen to more music and don't have that fatigue. And then Atmos, there was a period last year where I thought this could supersede stereo, but I'm very much in a place with it now that they coexist. The Atmos is a when done well, can be an enhanced version of the stereo. But I've got so much respect for the stereo. I know how hard it is to get that creative vision out of an artist's head and coming out of two speakers. I'm not even ready to think about a production in Atmos from the very beginning just yet. I think stereo is a great way of writing, producing, mixing, mastering, and then we take those pre-mixed stems, towards the end of the mix we have a discussion with the mixer, we get the files that we want, and then we can enhance and have a format that runs alongside. Yeah.
It's interesting, going back to something that you said there, because I noticed that when sort of MP3 came around and like lower quality, it was about how many tunes can you get on your iPod. It's like, I can get so many. But I've noticed like with kids these days, like vinyl's made a huge comeback, and like the cheap little headphones that people do that you used to get, the quality's gone up. So like everyone's producing higher quality, and the kids seem to have cottoned onto that, but through no other reason than it's like, this is high definition, this is good quality. Does that make sense? That with that trend, do you sort of?
It could be. I mean, there's so many different. There's just so many different aspects to it, isn't there? Out there, there's like how music's consumed. The headphone markets, last year was like 25 billion.
It's huge,
right? It's huge. So. Is this another way also of these higher tiers of getting people to pay for music again? If we somehow got to a place where music, and there was a fear that there was a generation and that was always going to stick, that we didn't pay for this art form, and maybe the higher tier. And also, I do believe there is that step in quality will retain the listener, and Atmos is that next step beyond HD. So there are studies that show immersive audio has a deeper connection with the listener, is more memorable, and I felt that in my process as well. When I get it, I'm like, I just want to turn it up and hear it and feel it. I want to feel it more, and that's why I think they can coexist. I think stereo is going to be around for forever, well, not forever, but for a long time, and immersive audio and Dolby Atmos is there to complement. They work well together.
Has it changed any processes for you, the way that you mix from stereo into Atmos?
It's changed the way I go. The way I go back to stereo now.
Well, either or. Is there anything
not really in? No, because I'm always evolving. I'm always thinking like, how can I get better? What's what isn't happening in my mixes at the moment? It can be last year it was depth.
Yeah.
The year before it's my low end, and then I'll focus on my lead vocal, and then I'll miss my low end, and I don't feel I'm in the top 5%, the top 10%. I'm not one of the greats out there, right? I'm not a Tom Elmhurst or a Spike Stent. I'm continually working and crafting and evolving and just working on that. So I'm always working on something in stereo, and now I've shifted to Atmos primarily, and that's a bigger challenge.
Yeah.
Because there's more going on, but I think my experience in music production is really helping in its taste. I've got all these options. I can do anything now.
Yeah.
Within the mix, but that's never a good thing. You should. It's the taste. It's the right thing to do, and what the song is saying, and those clues within the stereo mixes. When I get a Spike mix to do, and I'm hunting through those stereo. He's built this. It's getting louder and wider to the chorus, so I replicate that in Atmos, and I go a bit bigger and I go a bit wider.
Okay.
Those sort of things.
I was going to say, because like gluing together a kind of stereo mix, if you like. So for me, not a huge amount of experience in Atmos, but it feels like it's almost pulling it apart a little bit.
Well, you can. My band stuff, it's kind of talk to the assistants about it. If you pull it into the room too much, it falls over. It becomes unfamiliar. Like, we've evolved by hearing bands, by looking at a stage, and the sound is coming at you, and the drums and the bass are in the middle. So when you do something different, like the guitars are behind you and the band's in front of you, it feels instinctively wrong. Yet, when I'm working with electronically produced music, the signal just stands up better when you put it into the room. And I was thinking maybe we've evolved there by being in a club. And it's so loud, the music is all around you.
Yeah.
So it is familiar. So you've got to consider things like that. But again, that taste element, you've got to be able to try and strike that balance of what's serving the song and retaining that emotion or energy or vibe, or what are they trying to get across? What have they crafted within that stereo mix? That they're trying to get across to you, and then take that as my lead, and then pull it apart.
Build it from you got your foundation, and then sort of build.
Well, I've got my clues. I think of it as clues. Like, I'm hunting around to like, what can I do? Like, let them tell me what I can do, rather than I can do anything. I've got all sorts of delays, effects, pan positions, subs, filters. I've got mono to 128 channels. I've got so much movement and automation in all all over. But it's got to be right for the song. It's got to be complementary to what's already been done.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. We've gone through a real journey there historically. Just going back to something that I said before, if you were 20 and starting again, let's do a top 3 tips. What would you...
Top 3 tips at 20 to do what? To do what? What are we aiming for here?
We want to walk through this door. We're going to stand and
define success at the end of it, because that's changed very much from it. What do we want? A sustainable career within making music?
Yeah, I walk in here as an assistant, T-boy, whatever. Start at the bottom, work my way up, listen. What kind of 3 tips would you give to someone in that position?
The 3 most common things I find myself saying to the guys and girls that come through Dean Street are, don't monitor too loud. There's something about being in your 20s and just thinking your hearing's going to last forever if you have it on 11. Yeah. I do find myself saying that quite a lot. Be open. I like passion, commitment, obsession in music production. Is not necessarily it is a good thing. Be open to, especially today when I'm saying like the roles have been absorbed. You can't just do one thing anymore. And I'm talking about your average me. The average person in music. You need to have more strings to your bow than. I'm not worrying about the Pharrells, the Chance the Rappers, or the Rick Rubins, the super producer. They're geniuses. They're always they'll be geniuses in whatever they did. Be open. Have a path, have an idea of what you want to do, and craft and work towards that. But also be open to other areas to support that.
Yeah.
Financially.
Yeah. A third tip.
Don't give up.
Perfect. Let me flip it around then and say, what 3 things shouldn't you do? Like 3 no-nos, if you like.
Right. So my biggest no-no for studio life is, if you're a musician, don't think you want to work in a recording studio. You will suffer if you don't. I always say this side of the glass. So I'm at my most comfortable this side. I'm not a performer. I'm not a player. I am comfortable this side of the glass, and I'm uncomfortable that side of the glass. If you're a musician and you want to be a musician, you think you should work in a studio, it's the most frustrating. I've seen it so many times, and it just leads to bitterness and frustration because you're watching other people do what you want to do all day, and you don't get to do what you want to do. Yep. So that would be my first don't.
Don't monitor too loud, I guess.
Don't monitor too loud. Don't, musicians don't, and manage your expectations, right? There's the old and the new. I did 18 months before I got into the studio. You have somebody around for 18 weeks, and they're like, right, I want to go, I want to be promoted, I want to move on. And there's a good and a bad to that. There's a good side and there's a bad side to that. Nobody should have to wait around 18 months to get the starting position. That was wrong. But also, there's so much information out there. There's so much information. There's way too much information out there. And information, as maybe you experienced today, information is a part of it. The technical aspect is a strong foundation, but there is nothing that replaces experience. Yeah. You need, you only get that by doing and doing and doing and doing.
Learning by doing, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what about gear then? So, any tips on gear? Because I could come in here with all the gear in the world, and you could turn up with a little 4-track and do the same thing and probably get a better result than I could.
I don't know about that, but
with all this sort of stuff. So when we're talking about gear, and plugins is a good one. I've seen it quite a lot where
plugin obsession.
It's just the chain just becomes 10, 12 plugins. Yeah. Any tips from that side of it?
I'd say all the major doors, and I'll include UAD's Luna in this. Ableton, Logic, Luna,
Pro Tools.
I was going to get to that at the end. I thought it was the end of the obvious one. Pro Tools and Studio One. All of those come with incredibly powerful stock plugins. Yeah. They all do. If you learn those inside out and you understand what they are all doing, when you then go and make an investment of something, I'm a big fan of, can I say companies' names? Right, I'm a huge fan of Plugin Alliance, FabFilter, UAD, Nugent, Oak Sound are making some creative plugins, and Cargo Cults out of New Zealand, boutique plugins. But again, understanding those stock plugins, EQ, what frequency sounds like. What's the difference between 200 hertz and 400 hertz? 400 hertz and 1K. Understanding, getting a grasp, and something I don't do enough, like listening to the differences between you. Train your ears. So understanding what the frequency sounds like and getting the most out of what you have, and then when and everything comes with a demo these days. You can just demo something, and then if you can't live without it, then you buy it. If you don't, then you go on, or you subscribe. Now you subscribe, and then you cancel it if you don't want it. It's amazing.
And then the last one, because we're surrounded by outboard as well.
We are, some very nice
outboard.
So
if you had a choice of outboard or plugins, which way would you go?
Well, whenever I've done a shootout between a plug-in and the hardware equivalent, the hardware is always won.
Right.
So in a mix, but again, where we currently are in the world, you're talking convenience over sound in a sense. You can't. There's in the box, there's out the box. There's hybrid, which is quite nice. But the plugs, some of the plugs, they're so close, and it's rare that you walk into a studio and there are 6 distressors in a rack. You might get 1 or 2 if you're lucky, and obviously with plugins you can have as many as you want. Once again, it's I'd say it's never maximize what you've got as well. It's never about buying that one extra plugin's never going to make it that much better. Brilliant.
Well, thank you for joining me. It's been absolutely great. We've had a brilliant, fantastic facility, great session. Check around the YouTube channel for everything that's gone on today. Thank you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos just like this.